Welcome back to the circuit. Ricardo Tormo here in Valencia. A hugely exciting Moto3 Junior World Championship race we just had. If you've just joined us, we won't be spoiling the result for you, but what an exciting one it was. Up next, it's European Talent Cup, race 1 of 2 today. 17 laps for these guys, 1 lap less than the Moto3 race we had just a few moments ago. 4-kilometre circuit here at the circuit. Ricardo Tormo, anti-clockwise in layout, so there are more left-hand turns than there are right. 9 left, 5 of the right corners. Challenging layout as we've seen, and it really does lend itself to some interesting racing over the course of the day. A bit windy here as well at the circuit. As you can see, the fans getting a little bit blown about. We were up there spectating yesterday, Fran. Wasn't a cloud in the sky at that point, but it looks to be a bit difficult today. Yeah, it's certainly a little bit breezier up there than it was yesterday when we were having a look at qualifying. But it's not too bad. It's still got a good amount of sun, but yeah, that wind can make a bit of a difference, especially for the smaller bikes, and now we have the smallest bikes. We certainly do, yeah. The Honda NSF 250RC machines are going to be out on track. All standardised bikes, of course, in the European Talent Cup. All identical machinery for all of the teams and riders. Makes it a very level playing field and generally lends itself to quite close racing here as well. We'll talk more about what happened in Estoril when we get on to the grid, but you can see the fans there getting blown about a bit. A few jackets in the grandstands, and I can't say I blame them either because it's really not too nice out there, but it is a tailwind though on the straight. Yeah, it's good for those guys who want to slipstream it past and get a bit of an extra boost there, but yeah, it's pretty chilly actually. I put my jumper on in a true Northern British style to go down to Parc Fermé then just for Moto3, but yeah, it's pretty pleasant though. It's nice, even though it is a bit breezy. Well, it's nice. I mean, I have a fringe, so that's not so pleasant when that blows around. But at least it's not too hot and baking here. Yeah, certainly not. And yeah, the weather conditions you can see there from the wind detector, whatever you would call that. What would you call that? A weather detector? I'm not entirely sure of the English on that one. I'm not sure about detector. I have a doubt about that, but. Yeah, definitely. A weather system, we'll call it then on that. Weather system again, I believe that's what's happening in the sky, but it's okay. I promise we're native speakers and we are from the UK, but I don't know. I think it's yeah, but it shows obviously the breeze is quite heavy today. We can actually see that from our commentary position there. One of those we're just above the VR46 and the junior talent team boxes here on the main straight. So yeah, it's looking lovely and sunny. Few little clouds, but definitely that breeze is a big thing. And like I said, for the smaller bikes, these guys, it really feels a lot different. Yeah, it certainly does. It's going to be interesting, of course, because the lighter bikes, when it's a bit more windy, it makes it a bit more interesting in terms of how it can affect it. We saw in Estoril, actually, a few riders complaining that the wind was so severe it was picking up the front tyre into some of the corners. Yeah, I think it was, we were talking to Tom Booth-Amos, who unfortunately now has gone home injured. But talking to him yesterday, he was saying that parts of Estoril, there was a lot of wind and parts there wasn't so much. Sorry, I can't get my words out. But here, obviously, the circuit's a lot more compact. It's all in this one natural kind of amphitheatre here, so it's not too bad like that. There's not too many places that are more sheltered than others, so at least it should be fairly consistent for them. But yeah, I think it's certainly better track conditions than we had in Estoril, both in terms of, you know, obviously no moisture, but also the wind shouldn't play too much havoc compared to how it was in Portugal. No, certainly not. Well, the man who starts on pole position is a name that will be unfamiliar to you if you were tuned in for Estoril last time out, because he wasn't actually racing there. He was too young to make his debut, but it's Dani Munoz, the Spanish rider on board the number 7. You can see him there just making his way on to the grid. Keep an eye out for him because he was very, very quick in qualifying that we saw yesterday. Fran qualified on pole position eventually by 0.2 of a second over Xavier Artigas. Yeah, it's pretty impressive stuff. It's bit of it. I mean, the most famous example of this age thing is Jorge Lorenzo, who, when he made his debut in Grand Prix racing, didn't actually take part in Friday practice because it was the day before his birthday. That he turned 15 on qualifying day and went out on track for the first time. And yeah, so obviously, you know, it'd be pretty good if you could follow in Jorge's footsteps. You know, 5 World Championships so far, pretty impressive record. You're setting a lot of expectation on the young lads. Well, yeah, maybe that's yeah, you know, shooting a little early there. But no, it'd be great feeling for him as well to have just come in and obviously shown his pace right from the off. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty impressive stuff. That you can see there, yeah, that umbrella not so successful there, but looks to be up now. It's pretty brave, I think, to be putting umbrellas up on the grid with this amount of breeze. Yeah, Danny Munoz, 12 years old, as you can see, the minimum age you can compete in the European Talent Cup. He's part of the Jerez Andalusia Motor Talent team, a brand new outfit on the grid for this 2018 season. Clearly they've been had a lot of confidence in Danny. I think he was racing in RMFE last year, the National Spanish Championship, and he's doing quite well, as you can see, going into this championship immediately storming the field and going on to pole position. Really, really good to see for him. Here's the man that lines up alongside him, Xavier Artigas. Good ride from him, actually. Some good rides from Xavier in Estoril. You can see fifth here in the championship, 22 points on the board for the 14-year-old Spaniard, part of the Impala Honda outfit, with a 4th position in the first race and a 7th position in the second race. So some good points on the board for Xavier. Keep an eye out for him, though. He could be a bit of a dark horse in this race, as it were. What do you reckon we're going to be expecting from this European Talent Cup race, Fran? Because it's so unpredictable so much of the time.
Yeah, hopefully we're going to see a good group fight. But like we were saying during the Moto3 broadcast, sometimes this track, it can be a little bit tougher to overtake. But then you don't have loads of slipstreaming opportunities either. So hopefully we will get a good group fight. But we'll have to see, because if someone can get away at the front here, it is pretty possible to get your head down and really push and make that gap. So we'll have to see. Here we have one of the winners from Portugal last time out, obviously first race of the season, and then again on the podium. So pretty solid start to the season, really, for the young Belgian rider. And I don't know, I think those guys will be feeling pretty confident, both him and Julián Giral, who won the other race in Portugal. But we'll have to see how they cope with this new kid on the block who's come in and taken their pole position. So yeah, as you can see, wow, some real wind down there in the stand. Some pretty crazy hairstyles there. But it doesn't look too bad down on the grid. Obviously, they are quite high up when you're stood on top of this main building here, so that can make a difference as well. And then Adrian Fernandez, another Spaniard here. 2 fairly solid results to start the season. And now here in Valencia, made a big step forward in terms of qualifying position, and hopefully will again top 10 or even a little bit further up this time. Part of the IO Academy, obviously, so got some good support there. Yeah, definitely. Of course, we've got the IO team in the Moto3 Junior World Championship, of course, now in the European Talent Cup, also in the Moto3 World Championship and in Moto2 as well. So, and of course, the Moto2 team has that link to the KTM squad in the MotoGP grid. Here's Ignacio Iglesias, the 16-year-old Spaniard, one of the older competitors in the field. It's 12 to 18 years old, and he's a couple of years under it, but Ignacio, no points on the board for him last time out in Estoril. Difficult start to his season with the CIP team. We saw actually both CIP bikes unfortunately having technical issues, didn't we, in race 1 there, Fran? It was a difficult start to life for those guys. Yeah, definitely. I think Valencia now, obviously pretty solid qualifying. Definitely want to put that behind them, and yeah, points will be the goal here, I think. Yeah, points for the lads. It's going to be interesting to see how it all goes on. So, number 91, here is Victor Rodriguez on the outside of the second row of the grid. He's part of the JHK L'Église outfit. As you can see, 7th in the championship, 12th position in the first race, 5th in the second race, though really came on song, did the 17-year-old on board the number 91. You can see a plain white helmet design there, so quite like the look of that. And also you can see a fan there with Marc Marquez's replica bike. We saw that in the merch stand, yesterday. We did indeed, yeah. There's some good merch down here in Valencia. I'm not sure, are they holding that or wearing it? Not quite sure. Usually you get the replica bike on a hat, traditionally, but not sure there. And here we have an Alejandro Diaz, another rider who's a little bit one of the more mature riders in the field. But obviously that can work in your favour as well. You know, it's I think it's a little bit easier to keep it together and stay a bit calmer when you're 17 rather than obviously 12 like our pole sitter. So I think a lot of this could be a question of nerves off the start here, and who can keep theirs a little bit better. I think you're quite right. We just saw Alex Diaz, one of the riders who continued on in the 2018 championship. They had a good year last year, did Alex Diaz. Here's the race winner, though, from race number 2. Second in race 1, first in race 2, 8th on the grid for Julián Giral. As you can see, 15 years old for the Estrella Galicia rider. One of the riders that's got
quite a significant amount of backing. One of the things I love about the European Talent Cup, though, is that you've got teams like the Estrella Galicia outfit, then you've got the smaller teams. You've got the likes of Nikos and then the family-run teams as well that are in amongst the mix. A real plethora of different outfits.
Yeah, definitely. The ETC, much like World Supersport 300 in a lot of ways, it's really designed to be that entry level, to gain experience, go racing, and not either cost a lot of money or really, you know, you're not meant to need sort of the Estrella Galicia outfit to be able to enter here. But also it's fantastic for those guys like you say, the Monlau guys, IO as well. It's great for those guys to have that ladder through as well, because you know, talent promotion and development is also an important thing. There's quite a lot of outfits who have various stages with different teams and bikes running in different championships and categories, and that's also great for riders, you know, because that gives them an opportunity. They get within one of those outfits and they get some real investment in them and get a lot of stuff they can learn, and a great environment to be in and grow.
Yeah, certainly is. Well, the European Talent Cup now just over a year old. Of course, it started in the 2017 season. Really, really exciting debut year from all of these riders. Here's David Salvador. You can see 14 years old. 14th in the championship as well. Well, just one finish. It didn't finish in race 2, did the Cuna de Campeones rider. Of course, the Cuna de Campeones, this is their home race based in Valencia. Of course, we've got the Cuna Championship on the support bill here as well at Valencia. And there was a race yesterday that was pretty interesting by the looks of things from what I saw whilst watching over the start-finish straight. And the Cuna de Campeones team, of course, they've got an outfit in the European Talent Cup, as we saw with David Salvador. Then, of course, there is the Moto3 Junior World Championship project that they're running. They even made a few wild cards in the World Championship proper last year. So, makes things very interesting. Here's Luis Verdugo. Debut last year for the Spanish rider. 25 is the number he rides with. 13 years old. You can see there, not being too distracted by anything. Helmet, visor down, just trying to focus on the job in hand. And of course, being such a young age, it's all about confidence at this age, trying to get himself in and amongst the top group, doing those battles and keeping himself race fit and ready and the like and so on. And some nice love going on in the grandstand, as we can see there, between what looks to be mother and son. Here's the Besta Capital Dubai team. Number 54, Fermin Aldeguer, finished 3rd in race 1. Didn't finish on the podium in race 2. Big shame for Aldeguer, just tailed off for him. You can see they're 6th in the championship after that podium. And he could be a bit of a dark horse, but starting down in 12th position on the grid could be a bit of a hindrance for him. The 4th row for the Spanish rider. You can see there the plethora of activity taking place on the grid. 2 European Talent Cup races for you today. This is the first one as the teams and the mechanics and the like clear the grid, and they'll leave the riders on there to start their warming up lap before too long. Keep an eye out for this man here, though, the British rider Josh Watley on the number 70, racing in the British Talent Cup this year, racing in the European Talent Cup as well. Didn't score any points in Estoril, but a really good learning weekend for the 12-year-old. The youngest rider in the field is Josh Watley, part of the FAL 55 racing team, as we can see. And he's a rider who is pretty much always brimming with confidence, acts so much older than his years, does Josh Watley. I've been fortunate to know him for quite a few years after commentating on him in some national championships in the UK, and was really lucky to catch up with him in the British Talent Cup a couple of weeks ago at Donington Park as well. And he was absolutely brimming from ear to ear with confidence. Of course, exactly the same bikes they use in the British Talent Cup as the European Talent Cup. So some good track time there for Josh Watley on board those bikes, Fran. Yeah, definitely. Much like Lucas Tulovic, who is a 2 championship guy this year. I think it's great for Watley to just maximise that track time, you know. In the CV there's a few rounds, and British Talent Cup there's a few rounds, but it's not that packed season that you get in sort of MotoGP or World SBK. So apologies, I just hiccuped. But yeah, so it's great for him to just get that experience and get those laps in. Certainly is. Pietro Pavalainen, he was battling for the race victory at some points, or on the podium at least, and then crashed out in race 1. Big shame for the Finnish rider. We'll come on to that in a few moments. Here's the grid though. Danny Munoz, Xavier Artigas, Barry Baltas, Adrian Fernandez, Ignacio Iglesias, Victor Rodriguez on the road too. Then a Spanish 3rd row of the grid, Alejandro Diez, Julian Hirao and Francisco Gomez on board the number 9 in 9th position. And then we've got David Salvador, Luis Miguel Verdugo, Fermin Aldeguer. I always wonder how to say that. And then we've got Josh Watley, Peter Pavalainen, Daniel Holgado, Mateo Pataka, Adrian Huertas and Dirk Geiger.
So obviously, yeah, a bit of a Spanish armada at the front there.
Certainly is. Jose Rueda, Colin Feldhausen, Carlos Tatai, Andre Velstatek, Lorenzo Felon, Alex Milan, Carl Antonio Cias, Nicholas Scheiber, all the way down in 20th place on the grid, and Rick Dunnick, who was fighting for the podium in the couple of races before crashing out, all the way down in 27th place on the grid.
And then Clement Rouget, Mathieu Gregorio, Iker Garcia, Matteo Bertelli, Nicolas Hernandez, Luca de Fleischhauer, Ruben Baumann, Gabin Plonk, and Andreas Koffler on row 12. So yeah, good amount of nationalities here, and a few guys who will really be wanting to move forward.
Yeah, indeed. Angel Helodia, Philippe Rihashek, Soma Gorbe, then Mattia Falzoni, Kenny Koskinen all the way down in 41st position, Guilherme Silva, Jamie Davis in 43rd place. A shocking qualifying for the British rider. A really, really big shame for him. He'll be hoping for some steps forward in this race. Been a difficult start to the season for the Briton. But,
yeah, should we just finish that off there? Salvatore Ragusa at the back. Sorry, apologies there.
There we go. No, quite right as well. Yeah, Salvatore Ragusa lining up on the back of the grid. 44 riders, an absolute maximum capacity. Believe it or not, we had 52 on the provisional entry list. So a number of riders having not made the cut.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, you can look at them now. It's it almost looks like a few Spanish tracks after events. They let you on the track with your bike for a lap around. It almost looks like that on the warm-up lap here. But yeah, it should be a pretty good race, hopefully. I don't know, it can always get pretty interesting. Into turn 1 in Moto 3, we certainly saw some interesting ways of fitting that amount of bikes into that amount of space. We'll have to see if we get a repeat of that. Won't give too much away. It wasn't too dramatic. But yeah, we'll have to see. Valencia, it's a pretty tight track, so 40-odd little bikes out there is quite a lot.
Yeah, it's going to make things very, very exciting over the course of this race, and unpredictable. That's the one thing we love about motorsport, is its unpredictability.
Would you say that in racing anything can happen?
I could say that in racing anything can happen, Fran.
Indeed. Just in case you did join us for Estoril, that was unfortunately the much overused phrase of Sunday. We're attempting now to be a little more interesting, but who knows, you know, it's probably what we'll go back to.
It's a phrase that rings true, though.
It is indeed. This is the problem. You never know when there'll be some drama, especially in bike racing. So yeah, and especially with these guys, it could get pretty exciting out there. Pretty dramatic, but we'll have to see, you know. Obviously, like I said, there is the chance to escape more at this track compared to some others. So if someone can really make that break, then they may have a little more relaxed race. But yeah, a lot of bikes out there, a lot of competition.
Indeed. Well, we saw this in Valencia last year, one of the more, shall we say, placid races in the European Talent Cup. Not quite as much action as we were used to seeing over the course of the season. Hopefully that'll be turned on its head with 44 riders on the grid. It's going to be pretty action-packed down towards that first corner. As we said, a very tight left-hander. We can probably see a few riders extending track limits to the extreme going through there, I would imagine.
Yeah, I like Poleman there doing a bit of a Casey Stoner, rolling through slowly to the front, super cool. So here we go.
Here's the front row of the grid. Just to remind you then, it's Danny Munoz, Xavier Artigas and Barry Bautas on the front row of the grid. There are the 44 riders ready to go. Wait for the green flag to be waved at the back. A yellow flag is waving at the side of your picture there. We'll just wait and see what that's all about. One of the riders might have stalled on the grid, and indeed it's all stopped now. The green flag is waved. Look to the top left corner of your screen. Wait for those red lights to come on. European Talent Cup is about to get underway here. The red lights come on. They're holding them for a very long time. The reds are rising. We're out and away, and a great start from Barry Bautas from the Realia Victor Academy. He gets away absolutely brilliantly, and Victor Rodriguez, the Spaniard, making a good start as well as we head down towards the first corner, and it's Rodriguez with the advantage and the whole shot heading in towards turn 1. Everybody hoping to make it very cleanly through there, but 44 riders going into 1 is not going to be easy, and we can see some of them extending track limits to the extreme as Xavier Artigas gets himself up into second position at the expense of Adrian Fernandez there at turn number 2.
Yeah, definitely. Bautas really looked like he'd got it there off the line, but not quite. Oh, gone wide there. See, you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful at Valencia. You can lose out a lot, especially in the first laps of races like this, because there's 5 guys right behind you waiting to go past, not just one.
Certainly can. Well, it's Xavier Artigas who leads the way then after that mistake at turn number 4. Big shame for the number 91 of Victor Rodriguez. He's been racing in Moto Star the last couple of years, now racing here in the FIM CEV Repsol as part of the European Talent Cup. His racecraft is certainly not in question one iota, and as we said, in second place on this opening lap. after leading the way after the first couple of corners. It's going to be very, very interesting as the riders filter through that left-hander, then into the left and then the right kink. This is where we could see a few overtakes, especially on these smaller bikes.
Yeah, here we go. Someone giving it a shot there, but not quite. These three at the front just seem at the moment to have a little bit in hand. We'll have to see it all. And then, oh, it's getting pretty close here, and a bit of a wobble on the exit there as well. This, yeah, not too bad actually though. They were all cleanly through turn one. Pretty impressive. I think it's always impressive when these younger guys really keep their heads. It's great to see. They're really, you know, young professionals and starting their careers, and yeah. Now they'll probably prove me wrong and it'll all get very crazy. We'll
Commentator's curse already.
Exactly, we'll have a bit of a World Supersport 300 last lap at Assen situation, which got fairly dramatic fairly quickly. But Artigas then holding on to that advantage, 4/10 clear over the line. All getting pretty tight in there as well, and someone's run wide as well. That is definitely abusing track limits there. Get back on the gas when you're in the runoff. But we'll have to see. Hopefully, if it's just one, they don't gain too much from it. Like I was saying earlier during Moto 3, if you don't gain from it and it's a mistake and it naturally penalises you, then you're okay. It's when you, just kind of make up some space or even places from it that it's an issue.
Well, it was Barry Bowsers that ran wide at the first corner, so a bit of a shocking opening lap for the Belgian rider. We've got a yellow flag on track at somewhere as well, and it's just gone back to green, so an incident that's clearly been cleared up, or it could have been somebody perhaps stopping on track with a technical problem. Great opening lap, by the way, from Julian Hirao. Started down a bit further down the order, up into 7th position. Really good stuff for him. He'll be pretty pleased with that, and of course he's going to be hoping to fight for that race victory, as he did in race 2 at Estoril.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Hirao is at the top of the championship, but it's only 4 points back to Baltus. So, yeah, if these guys can make it through to the front of this race, you know, that can make the difference and tip the pendulum. And then Francisco Gomez in 3rd, but that's 19 points back. So it's quite a difference at the moment. It's a 2-horse race. Oh, we've got a crasher there. Ruben Byman, I think. Byman. Yeah,
that was that's where the flag would have been out at the first corner.
Indeed.
Oh, dearie me, he got caught behind. Was that Bowsers he went into? Dear, oh dear. Well, he did a good job of not tumbling too far into that gravel trap, but that was a very nasty crash for Ruben Byman. He'll be disappointed. Is that Alex Diaz, actually? I apologise, because it's number 27.
Yeah, I think that was a different incident. That looked a bit difficult. Bit close there, but luckily he's up and okay. But yeah, it gets pretty close down here. You've got to be careful, keep your wits about you. But it looked like he was a bit of a victim there of just clipping the back of another rider. And
that's been at the expense of Barry Bowsers as well. He is now out of the race, has gone tumbling down the order. Well, he's in 17th position, I apologise. So whether he can continue after the incident or whether there is any damage on his bike, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here over the remaining laps in this race. But at the moment, Julian Hirao just in front of Francisco Gomez for 4th position in this race, trying to bridge that gap to the top 3 in the podium there, Fran, but they've already cleared off out in front. They're in a different postcode.
Yeah, definitely. They've really pedaled to the metal. Not quite the right analogy for bikes, but yeah, they've really put their foot down and got going there. And yeah, it can be difficult at Valencia to catch that gap back up again, but then also they're pretty close together, and if they start battling, it's anyone's game again. But this group as well, though, don't look to be helping themselves too much. Pretty close racing here, and a huge group fighting for the podium there.
Yeah, Daniel Holdego in the mix there. We saw him, of course, battling for that podium in Estoril in race 2, though. Big shame for him as he ended up crashing out. Disappointment for him. In fact, actually, I apologise, it was race 1 where he crashed out. Big disappointment for both of the Estrella Galicia junior riders, Holdego and Rueda, the other two aside from Hirao that ended up going down the road.
Yeah, we just saw Fernandez there running a little bit wide. Again, have to be careful with that. It's the green. It's basically the green. The curbs are okay. But if you go on the green stuff, that's where you're going to be under scrutiny a little bit. But nice and tight through that final corner, unlike the group behind. So these two guys now will have to see if the slipstream can really help Rodriguez get past him. Looks like he's going to give it a shot.
Sorry to interrupt, Fran. I was just wondering where the race leader had gone, Fermin Aldeguia. He looks like he's had a tumble down off the track because he's not in the front of the leading group. I did wonder where he'd gone from the picture, but unfortunately he's not in this leading group now. So we'll keep an eye out for Aldeguia, see if we can spot him in and amongst the mix. Can't quite see him there in this little group at the moment. But
there's obviously been some sort of incident that we missed, yeah. There, and we had a couple of replays of other crashes, obviously missed that one, or missed whatever incidents happened.
Well, now it's Adrian Fernandez who leads the way from Victor Rodriguez. Julian Herrera promoted up into 3rd position as Holdego makes some ground, gets himself up into 4th place now as well. So it's Estrella Galicia bikes 3rd and 4th in this European Talent Cup race. Very exciting stuff indeed. I'll tell you what, Danny Munoz, he's getting ruffled up a little bit here, isn't he?
He is definitely. He's definitely having a bit of a baptism of fire in this race so far. Obviously not the best start from pole, but he's still up there and well in this fight for the podium. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, these guys.
Oh dear! One of the Cunha de Campiones bikes going down the road. That is the number 46 of David Salvador. Unfortunately, he was crashed out.
Yeah, nice 46 helmet there as well to go with his number. But that's difficult. That is. Just
behind Fernando Gear. So that's where Aldeguer was. He was inside the top 5. He dropped back after a mistake then, and he just loses the front, doesn't he, there?
Incredibly lucky how he slid out there and didn't collect anybody else. That's always a risk when you're in a big group, and especially he was heading for the inside there, but luckily just slid out and no one on the outside. Oh, very wide there. I think...
Victor Rodriguez
yeah,
this
is pretty good news now for Fernandez. He's now got a little bit of breathing space. Let's see if he can keep that together.
Yeah, Victor Rodriguez unfortunately taking the rather scenic route around that final corner. Manages to not lose too much time or indeed any positions as a result of that, which is some kind of consolation. But regardless, he's going to have to put in a number of fast laps to get himself back onto the rear end of Adrian Fernandez's machine. Meanwhile, here comes Holdego trying to sneak a wheel up the inside of his teammates.
He didn't lose out too much there. It really looked like when he started going off right towards the edge of the picture, I was like, wow, okay, this is quite decisive, but actually not too bad. Collected that up pretty well. It's just over half a second, that gap, so that's catchable. That's catchable if he gets his head down and doesn't let that mistake ruffle him as well. Obviously, racing can also be a mental game, and that's an important part of it, even at this level. But those two Estrella Galicia bikes, they look a little bit feisty now. They've got to be careful because the gap to the two in front of them is not that big. They need to make sure they don't fight and ruin their chances of moving forward a bit. But Giral is going to be pretty happy so far. He's moved up, not too much drama for him in the podium fight, already in the championship lead. Good job so far. There's
Alex Diaz, unfortunately. Well, he will be sick as a parrot after that crash. Really frightening incident for him, a big disappointment for him to go down the road at turn number 1. We cross back to the battle for the race lead, and already Victor Rodriguez has clawed back that advantage and is now back into the lead of the race. So this is really good stuff from Victor Rodriguez. What a couple of laps it's been from him to get himself back onto the rear end of Aldeguer, Fernandez rather, and into the lead of this race on board that PlayStation Leglise machine.
Yeah, we'll have to see if there was a bit of a moment there or if he's just absolutely caned it and then mugged him. But yeah, definitely very impressive recovery that, and that'll do wonders as well to have known he's right back in there and take a deep breath now and not beat himself up too badly. And then there's a big gaggle of bikes behind now. They're really starting to get a bit feisty. You see Daniel Munoz there getting pretty close there to that Estrella Galicia. Got to be careful, and through the runoff again.
Yeah, he's going to run wide, but he loses some positions, doesn't take an advantage in any way, shape or form there as Fernandez goes back up the inside for the lead of the race. Let's see if we can see what happened coming down the start-finish straight. Well, it was Munoz. Look to the left-hand shot of your picture, the number 7. Did he just duff up his braking zone? He was behind the Estrella Galicia bikes. We didn't quite catch that. But nonetheless, it's interesting to see what happens because Adrian Huertas has also made some good ground. Francisco Gomez, Luis Verdugo not too far away in this little gaggle as well. So this is going to be an interesting duel for the podium positions.
Definitely. Just like to say as well, the top 9 Spanish. Really, really impressive performance from the home riders here. But I mean, we've got a really good spread of nationalities here, but a few of them probably seen this track a few more times than the others. So yeah, but it's really impressive at the moment. But Matteo Patacca is currently the top non-Spaniard in 10th for Italy. But Peter Pavalainen's having a fairly solid race for Finland in 12th. I can't speak. I'm trying my best. It's not good, is it? I mean, it's literally the definition of my job. But yeah, so you've got some good performances there, and Josh Watley still in the points there, and in front of Barry Baltus. So that's a pretty impressive scalp for Watley to have picked off so far.
Yeah, indeed, very impressive. Baltus to have managed to recover to 14th position. Andres Vostate, the final point scorer at the moment in this race. Rick Dunnick as well, starting down in 27th place, up into 19th after 6 laps in this race. Really good stuff from the Dutch rider. I think he just needs to finish on the board after what was a challenging time for him in Estoril. Yeah,
definitely. I think we had a few guys in Moto3 as well that really made big leaps up. So you know, it's good here in that, you know, if you can stay with the guys in front of you and you can really make some good progress. But yeah, I don't know. I think now we're probably. Would you say that that's a big front group now?
Absolutely. I was just about to comment on it. I was saying that it's getting very interesting because, of course, the two that have been battling, Rodriguez and Fernandez, whilst they've been battling, the other guys have closed that big chatter on the front end there, though. Fernandez in second place. Yeah,
it's now definitely start the Jaws music for the guys behind now. They're definitely absolutely on their tail, and I think going to strike pretty quickly if he can. Yeah, Giral looking like he's going to probably make a move pretty soon.
His teammates Holdego behind, and Rueda with the fastest lap we saw last time around. He's not out of touch in this group as well. You can just see him there behind the number 7 of Munoz and also the number 9 of Francisco Gomez as we go into the left-handed kink, then into the hairpin. Once more, still the positions stay as they are, but Rueda looking like he could be a bit of a threat in this race. Holdego is now, Hila rather, is up into second position at the expense of Fernandez.
Yeah, these are doing the full Brad Binder at Jerez in Moto3, aren't they? Arrive, immediately conquer, and then I imagine they're going to try and push and pull away. But yeah, it's impressive how quickly they've caught them, because there was a bit of a battle at the front, but not too much. And all of them, well, not all of them, that's very unfair. A few of them there heading over the green. Need to be careful there. And now, we're going to get some retaliation down here. No, not too much. Giral keeps it together, and now he'll be hoping to get some good drive out of here and close in on Rodriguez at the front.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens as we come over the timing line to complete lap 7 here at Valencia. You can see there that Huertas is also in and amongst the mix on board the Rally Avintia Academy machine. Here comes Fernandez back into second position at the first corner. So Fernandez, good stuff from him at turn number 1. He'll be hopeful of a strong result here, but he's got those riders breathing down his neck. He goes all the way down to number 25, Luis Verdugo. So a top 9 potentially battling for this race lead.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's really closed up now, hasn't it? But yeah, definitely Fernandez made that look pretty easy into turn 1. Really, really clean, nicely done. And then Danny Munoz made it look a little bit more interesting into turn 2 there. I was a little bit worried for a second, but kept it all together. And yeah, this is a good fight now. Good fight. I think this could get pretty interesting. We've got 8 of 17 gone. So yeah, good fight between these guys.
Indeed. We should mention Carlos Tatai as well, who's inside the top 10 in 10th position. I think he might have just lost out a little bit over the last couple of laps, actually, because Mateo Pataka appears to have line, and I think Josh Watley are ahead now into 10th, 11th and 12th place, respectively. But Carlos Tatai was inside the top 10 after starting quite far down the order. That would have been some really good progress for him. Meanwhile, the battle back out in front. Look at this. Here comes Munoz trying to find his way up the inside of Huertas. Does he make it through into the right-hander? Yes, he does, but a block pass, and he has to force Huertas just to slow it off the throttle there.
Yeah, definitely. That was a bit of a domino effect for the couple of guys behind him there. That was pretty tight into there. And now you can see there's a little bit of daylight now that they'll hopefully be able to close up on the straight. But, I was going to say, if they're going to try it 3 into 1 there, that's not going to go. But no, keeping it nice and sensible. And yeah, again, Munoz, though, really made up that time right through the final corner there. So, again, huge fight for the win.
Certainly is. Well, the slipstream does come into effect. It's even more pronounced on these Honda NSF 250 RC machines. As we wait for them to come tumbling into that first corner, they do so now. This is very exciting. You can see Rodriguez was on the inside with the white and fluo yellow machine. This is going to be very interesting to see what happens. Here comes Rodriguez, though, trying to find his way up the inside of Holdego into the first corner. So it's now Giral from Holdego who lead the way. The two Estrella Galicia junior team riders in and amongst the mix. And also Jose Rueda not too far behind the battle as well. He's just sitting behind Danny Munoz at the moment in 5th position.
Yeah, I did say, didn't I, start the Jaws music. These guys have arrived, they're through, and now have to see if they think they've got a bit more pace to start pulling away. But at the moment, Rodriguez looks fairly comfortable behind them at the moment, nothing too dramatic. And those top 4, they've been fairly consistent throughout this race. There's a bit of more chopping and changing behind. But yeah, Danny Munoz, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty impressed. Youngest rider on the grid, obviously by definition, wasn't even old enough for the first race of the year. So yeah, that's an impressive performance, and it's a good debut. He should be full of confidence for the second race as well.
Yeah, it certainly should be. Well, this is going to be an exciting time. Of course, we've got 2 European Talent Cup races along the way. We've got this one, and then we've got another one coming up later on this afternoon to bookend the day's action here at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo in Valencia. Holdego, though, trying to learn from his mistakes. Of course, he'd have taken a knock, I reckon, from that crash that he had in race 1 in Estoril. Didn't quite come together for him in race 2 either. So battling in amongst the front group is going to be confidence-inspiring regardless. But honing his racecraft, learning how the championship work and how the riders work is very important also.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, the Estrella Galicia Monlau Mark VDS structure is a great place to learn your craft and really get on that ladder. So, you know, they're pretty much guaranteed to be quality riders if they've been chosen by those guys. So these two certainly showing that at the moment. Great performance here. But Rodriguez, though, put in a little bit more, bit of a twitch there. But yeah, Rodriguez back at the front. Maybe not for long. No, just holds on to it there. But yeah. They see Julian Simon in the middle of your picture, and yeah, it's fairly interesting race at the moment. I think I thought maybe a couple of the guys would be able to break away from these, but no, we've still got that big group. But Giral, I think, doesn't look too happy to not be leading.
Indeed, well, fairly controlled at the moment for all of these riders. Nothing too dramatic that we've seen so far. No elbows out at this moment, but of course it's European Talent Cup. The riders are young, they're full of testosterone, and towards the end of the race I reckon it's going to be pretty interesting, you know. Yeah,
I think definitely. We've got yeah, just over 6 to go now. We're on lap 10 of 17. And a big fight for the win. Could get pretty, I was going to say fruity, maybe feisty is better. But I think I've used the word feisty a little bit too much.
Fruity works.
Fruity maybe works. But yeah, Rodriguez certainly looking like he likes to be leading as well. I think he's been at the front pretty much throughout the race. Just trying to... Oh, we've got a crasher in the background there. That was, I think it was an Estrella Galicia machine that went down there.
It would be Rueda if it was. We'll wait and see whether we get confirmation of that. We'll count the guys through the picture. And indeed, yeah, Rueda not in that shot at all. So yeah, a disappointment for the Spanish rider. So that's 2 crashes in 3 races for him. He'll be disappointed with that one. Hopefully we're going to replay of that as Fernandez gets ruffled out wide onto the curb and has to recheck himself back into the group, losing a couple of positions in the process as well, just going behind Adrian Huertas.
Impressively not actually going off the track there, keeping it together pretty much. Oh, we've got Danny Munoz down. Oh, I was singing his praises, saying he's kept his head really well on his debut, but have to see where he's managed to get restarted. That's tough luck for him.
Yeah, certainly so. Big shame for Danny Munoz. He'll be disappointed with that one. And nonetheless, there is that second race. And of course, the grid positions are exactly the same for race 2 as they are for race 1. So wherever you qualified on Saturday is where you'll start both your races on Sunday. Meanwhile, back to this battle. It's just petered out a little bit, hasn't it, between the first 3 and then into 4th position there, Fran?
Yeah, definitely. I think these guys have just got a little bit of breathing space now, but you never know. There you can see Huertas looking behind him, seeing who's with him. There's still a lot of people behind you. Don't spend too much energy looking behind. But yeah, and obviously you can see Fernandez lost out a little bit there. He's now down in 5th, just trying to bridge that gap back up to these guys.
So if it was you then, walking down to the bookies this afternoon, who would you be placing a bet on for this race?
I'd put the equal amount of money on the top 10.
Ooh, interesting. I like your thinking.
Yeah, I like to, you know, make sure the odds are okay. Who can call a race like this, you know? It's these lower categories with the smaller bikes and a load of riders on the track. They're amazing entertainment, but definitely I don't think for the bookies. It's
so entertaining.
You can never tell.
No, you really, really can't. You put €1 on each one each way and wait to be surprised at what happened at the end of it, wouldn't you?
Definitely. Giral again back in there, and Huertas has made that move and is back with these guys. So I think they've bridged that gap again, and it should be closing up. Yeah, I think again they're just a little bit wide through there, taking a bit of liberty with the green stuff. But yeah, I think Rodriguez, almost a touch there between him and Giral. But I think Giral, no, not quite going for it down into turn 1. But yeah, it's anyone's game. Who would you bet on?
That's a very interesting point. I have to say, given previous races, I'd go for Giral, given the fact that he finished 2nd in race 1 and then won race 2 in Estoril. Not
a bad shout, not a bad shout. Gomez there, going for a bit of a move. Made some big progress through there. And again, we have Rodriguez back at the front. So, yeah, here we go. Choosing his time to really make some progress now, Francisco Gomez. That's impressive stuff. Been pretty quiet in that mid of that group, not doing too much. And then now we're obviously decided it's his time to really put the pedal to the metal and go.
Keeping himself under the radar for the time being, but into third place. He's trying to make his mark with just over 5 laps remaining in this race. Still, Rodriguez, look at how defensively he's riding there, Fran, going into that left-hander. He's really trying to hold off the charge from behind.
Yeah, I think he likes being at the head of this group and likes being in control of it. But that time round, obviously, there's been a bit of chopping and changing, but he was, yeah, a little bit slower than a couple of the guys around him. Ooh,
Gomez.
Close.
That's very close and very nice from the Spaniard as well. He is up into second position, and I tell you what, he could be challenging for the race lead before too long. He has got absolutely supreme pace in this final sector as well. We go over the brow of the hill through turn 13. And then into the final corner of the lap. This is going to be hugely exciting. On the brakes, trying for the outside line. It's not going to work through there, Sunshine, I'm afraid to say. The slipstream, though, in towards turn 1 could prove to be. Oh, and everyone's running wide in the prize corner. So, Rodriguez out wide. Is they going to allow Gomez the advantage he needs? Look at the two Australia Galicia bikes of Hilal and Holdego, who are also in and amongst the mix. The team willing him on. Into the first corner we're going to go. Is anybody going to change the lead? Well, Gomez signalled his intentions. A very late move. Nice and up the inside. Quite aggressive as well, it's got to be said. Forces Rodriguez out wide, and he is up into first position.
Yeah, definitely. You would imagine, given the moves he's just made and suddenly sliced up through the pack, that he thinks he's got some serious pace now to try and break away at the front. And yeah, that was pretty aggressive, but also pretty impressive. Not too much, and a nice move there to get around turn 1 and hold on to that.
Notice from race direction coming through, a 3-second time penalty to be addressed after the race for track conditions. That's a big shame. So the riders that includes are the number 7, that is Danny Munoz, unfortunately, who we saw going down the road. The number 22 is Clément Rouget. Yep. And then the number 5 is Lorenzo Felon. So a big shame for all of those guys. 3-second time penalty. They're not necessarily battling in amongst the group, but it's still going to hinder their race results regardless.
Yeah, definitely. Like we've said, track limits, it's an important thing. And in these kind of championships, you know, you're not just teaching the kids how to ride a bike fast. It's all these things that come into play for a successful career at the top level, especially. And track limits, taking too many liberties, just a few too many liberties. But, you know, it's one of those things where hopefully if you get burnt once, you won't do it again. So they'll learn the lesson.
The thing is, race direction have to reinforce it, don't they? That's the problem. They have to show that they're going to be doing something, as we can see Luis Verdugo trying to challenge a line up the inside of Mateo Pataka. Does he get it through? Yes, indeed, he does at the final corner. So good stuff from Verdugo. Cars to tie has also come into this mix. You can just see the number 99 there on board the Reale Aventura. Somewhat quiet qualifying for him as we go over the timing line. 4 laps now remaining here in Valencia for race number 1 of the European Talent Cup. Through the first corner, it's Francisco Gomez who still leads the way. This is where it's going to get very tasty indeed as we come down towards turn number 2.
Yeah, definitely. I think Gomez looks pretty solid at the front there. No one could quite get past him down the straight and into turn 1. But they've not really been dropped, though, this group. I thought maybe he'd really got some pace in his pocket, but not so much so far. The likes of Rodriguez and the Australia Galicia bike still able to really stay right with him. So we've still got this huge fight for the win. But, yeah, pretty soon, though, it's not going to be a fight for the win between all these guys because they're going to run out of time. So if they want to really be fighting for it, you know, in the next couple of laps, they've got to make their way through to the front of this group.
Yeah, it's all about tactics, really, isn't it, as well? And when you're such a young tender race, oh, it's getting a bit hairy there as Victor Rodriguez had to sit the bike up, and that allows Hirao a nice look up the inside into second position. Does he make it stick? Yes, indeed he does. Demotes Francisco Gomez down into third place, and keep an eye out as well for Huertas, who has held on very nicely over the course of this race. And Gomez, I tell you what, he loves a late lunge, doesn't he, that rider? Yeah,
definitely. Some pretty spectacular stuff from him over the last few laps, but also fairly clean, which is always good to see, you know. Just getting a little bit. I was wondering who's going to try that there. I was like, that's probably not going to work. Please don't.
Not a passing place there.
Yeah, definitely not. But again, they all look pretty. Yeah, it's a good battle now, isn't it? Definitely hotting up a bit there at the front.
Holdego in and amongst the mix with Huertas close behind as well. Out of the final corner, over the timing line, Daniel Holdego. Holgado, sorry, apologies.
Yeah, and then we have Rodriguez back at the front again. So Gomez's charge kind of put on hold a little bit now, but he's in a good position. You know, we've got 3 laps to go, or 2 full laps after this one's completed. So, you know, third's a pretty good position. And again, all of them there off in the runoff. They need to be a bit careful about it. And Gomez is going to try it, not quite, just holding station there in third. And I think maybe, oh, I think he thought about that, didn't he? There, it's difficult. But yeah, Huertas keeping it sensible rather than going for that lunge.
Getting pretty racy, isn't it, in and amongst the front group. This is going to be very, very interesting, and see what happens. I tell you what, though, Julian Hirao's trying to bolt on these last few laps. Is he going to make it through? I tell you what, Pietro Pevelainen is also trying to get himself. Oh no! Julian Hirao, a huge crash out of the right-hander, out of the left-hander, and onto the straight. That is a huge incident. There's surely going to be a red flag, and indeed there is. The red flag is immediately called. One of the Realia Vincia bikes also got caught up in there. Well, that was very, very frightening indeed, and no surprise to see the red flag being brought out after that one. A huge crash after Hirao looked like he just lost the rear out of that final corner, and we will give you an update as soon as we can on the condition of both of the riders, as we can see. Well, that was very, very frightening indeed. The red flag is brought out. The riders, of course, now having to slow down on track and, of course, making their way back to pit lane. This is going to, of course, delay proceedings. The race will not be restarted. We've reached 75% race distance, so we'll be hearing down in Parc Fermé from the riders very, very shortly indeed. And we can see the riders now making their way back down to Parc Fermé. We'll have to wait for a final confirmation and a final race result. At the moment on our timing screens, it's Francisco Gomez, but the thing is, it will count back one lap as well, so we need to wait and see whether that will go through. Just stopping all the riders at the Parc Fermé entry, as you can see there, just to wait and see what has happened. You can see the riders now being attended to on track, the medical attention being brought on, treating the riders that are involved. We'll give you confirmation of who was involved in the incident as soon as we can. It was quite difficult to see from that camera angle, unfortunately. Francisco Gomez then has been declared the winner of race 1 of the European Talent Cup here at Valencia at the circuit. Ricardo Tormo, delight for the number 9 then. He was the rider who led the way, according to what we can see of that graphic on screen. As we say, if we hear any more and we have any more updates, we'll give you official confirmation. But as I can see it on screen, the podium will be Francisco Gomez, Julian Hirao and Victor Rodriguez. They will be your top 3 in this race. Gomez there just wondering what's going on at this stage. Of course, it's still very much an unknown. Of course, the concern is with the riders who were caught in the on-track incidents. Looks like it was one of the Realia Vincia Academy bikes who was caught in and amongst the mix there. You can see the medical staff here at the circuit and the marshals just attending to the riders. The main thing is all riders seemingly okay. You can see the rider involved being sat up and talking away to medical staff, but we'll wait for any official confirmation of any news that we do receive. The stretcher now being brought out onto the circuit. Of course, before that point, it was a very interesting race in the European Talent Cup. It was looking very feisty on those final few laps. Of course, the problem being that when you've got riders who are battling and they're all so close to one another, you can see there, in particular, the rider walking away. I think it might be Huertas. It's definitely one of the Realia Vincia riders. He's up and he's on his feet, which is the main thing. I think he was just very winded, and quite understandably so from that incident. It was very, very nasty indeed. Bikes going over riders, and of course that's a cause for concern in any stretch of the imagination, but especially when you've got another 9 riders following you very, very close behind. Out of the left-hander it was. It's always a very fast corner to be having an incident. And credit to the marshals for getting it dealt with so quickly, the red flag for coming out so quickly as well. Of course, this is going to have a knock-on effect for the Moto2 race. I dare say we'll see a delay. And you can see that actually the race has been declared as a victory for the JXK Leglise team of Victor Rodriguez. So the result has changed from what we saw on our timing screen. And indeed, Victor Rodriguez, by the looks of things, has been declared as the winner of this first race. Just some discussions going on down, of course, in Parc Fermé. The fans, as we can see, watching on here at the very windy circuit. Ricardo Tormo here in Valencia. A track, of course, steeped in history. A track, of course, that's been the title decider for many a championship over the years as well. Most famously, of course, and most recently, the MotoGP World Championship in 2017 between Marc Marquez and Andrea Dovizioso. A hugely exciting battle that was, a hugely exciting European Talent Cup race that was as well, up until that incident, of course, that we had with just a few laps to go. That red flag, of course, as we said, going to bring a delay to proceedings. I can see from our commentary position one of the riders in the ambulance just going back down to the medical centre. As we said, with any updates that we have, we will give you over the course of the broadcast here today at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo here in Valencia. European Talent Cup, of course, a championship that lends itself to very close racing. That was exactly what we were seeing. 9 riders battling for that race victory. And it was hugely exciting. Anybody's guess, really, as to who was going to take that race win. A shame it ended the way it did, and it was cut short before the end of the race. But unfortunately, these things happen in motorcycle racing. It's one of those things, I'm afraid to say, that we all just have to put up with every now and then. So, still waiting for official confirmation of the race results here in the European Talent Cup. As we said, riders now being transferred to the medical centre after that crash as well. There would have been a few hearts in mouths, but from what we saw on the pictures, everybody managing to walk up and get up and walk away, which is the main thing there. Very important, of course, that everything is all okay with all of the riders, as we say. So let's go down to Parc Fermé then. The race winner of Victor Rodriguez is down, talking to Fran Wild about that race.
So it was a pretty dramatic end to that race there, but in the end, you've taken the win. What can you tell us about that race? Some good moves there towards the final laps.
Yes, I'm very happy because it had been a difficult race because my motorbike is more slow than others motorcyclists, but I am very happy for this victory and for 25 points to the championship, and thank you for my team for a good setup around the week, and thank you for my sponsor for helping me and my friends and to the family.
Y ahora en castellano también.
Bueno, ha sido una carrera difícil porque estamos un poquito en desventaja en cuanto a la moto, pero bueno, he sabido gestionar bien. He tenido casi una caída, pero bueno, esta victoria me sabe como si hubiese ganado 3 porque no me lo esperaba, la verdad. Pensaba que a lo mejor me quedaría fuera por motivos de mecánica, pero bueno, estoy contento por este podio y la siguiente carrera más.
Gracias.
Well, Francisco Gomez actually declared the race winner there after all of the confusion following that red flag. Well, away from the lights, it was Barry Bounters who initially got the launch. And it looked like he would take the lead in towards the first corner. It wouldn't go his way, though, however, because Victor Rodriguez would get the whole shot on board the PlayStation L'Église machine in towards turn number 1. Everybody made it relatively cleanly through. A few riders running wide, but nothing really to write home about at that stage. Meanwhile, there was a few changes of position going through turn 2. That's to be expected. Meanwhile, Xavier Artigas hit the front in the race as he looked to try and romp away with the lead of the race. Julian Hirao also made some good ground. Tried to make his way through on one of the riders there, but didn't quite manage to make it stick at this stage. Xavier Artigas still leading the way at this point. Then there was this very frightening incident with Alex Diez involved in a crash with Barry Bounters. Bounters eventually managed to remount. Not stop, rather, I should say, and finish in 13th position at the end of that one. But regardless, very frightening indeed. Alex Diez failing to finish that one. Big shame as well for David Salvador, crashing out with the Comunidad de Campeones team. Meanwhile, Julian Hirao leading the way. Victor Rodriguez in second place. Xavier Artigas, unfortunately, the early race winner, going down the road a little bit. Meanwhile, the battle still continued onwards in that race. Very, very tasty indeed. Francisco Gomez became a fan of a nice dive up the inside. He made his way into second position at this stage. Pietro Pepperleinen also looking very strong in the latter stage of that one as well. Francisco Gomez, this was the incident, though, that decided the race. A huge crash involving Julian Hirao. It looks like Pietro Pepperleinen was also caught up in amongst the mix. And by the looks of things, Adrian Fernandez. Very difficult as well, as we said, to see from that camera angle, but definitely one of the Estrella Galicia bikes, definitely a Blumac HMA machine, and also one of the Reale Avintia Academy outfits. A shame to end the race in that way, the red flag being brought out 3 laps before the end. And as we said, of course, as soon as we receive a medical update on the condition of the riders, we will bring it to you here this afternoon. So Francisco Gomez then does take the race victory for the Team Last Sport outfit. I think he'll be pretty pleased with that one, don't you? Victor Rodriguez claiming second. Third position was Julian Hirao in that race, and even despite that incident, he did manage to make his way onto the podium. So, in fact, I apologise, it's Daniel Holgado who's on the rostrum, in fact, instead of Julian Hirao. So some incorrect information from our timing screens. Victor Rodriguez in second position for the JHK Vigliese team.
Vicepresidente de la FIM Europe entregará el trofeo al vencedor, Francisco Gómez.
And Francisco Gomez taking the race win. A brilliant start to the year for the Spanish rider, with the Team Last Sport outfit. And let's get the national anthem being displayed in, or being played in just a few moments' time, but not before he gets a check for some Repsol petrol as well. Very nicely done. He can use his next track day on that one.
Escuchamos en honor del vencedor el himno nacional. Y es el momento de celebrarlo.
Francisco Gomez declared the race winner. An all-Spanish podium in European Talent Cup race number 1. And the riders spraying the Casera as well. Moto 2 races along the way very, very shortly as well. We'll bring you action from the 600cc class. Very excited for that one, of course. Talk more about that in just a few moments' time. Good stuff from all of these riders, keeping their head cool.
Está subiendo el número 1.
Keeping concentrated as well with a very difficult end.
Para esa foto.
As we said, towards the end of that race, getting very, very nasty indeed with that incident, bringing out the red flag. As I mentioned a few times now, any updates we'll bring you throughout the course of this afternoon. Race 2 along the way later on this afternoon to bookend the day. In the meantime, let's take a look at the final result. Francisco Gomez then is declared the race winner. Victor Rodriguez in second, Daniel Holgado in third, Adrian Fernandez fourth, Carlos Satai fifth, Luis Miguel Verdugo in sixth place, Matteo Patacca the Italian seventh, Andrzej Vostatek eighth, Josh Watley in ninth position. What an elation for the British rider inside the top 10. Incredible performance from the 12-year-old. Barry Bautas completes the top 10. Good stuff from him. Dirk Geiger, Luca Verdeshua, then Rick Dunnock inside 13th place, Matthew Gregorio. Alex Milan is the final point scorer. Nicholas Scheiber 16th, Ika Garcia 17th, Angel Heladia 18th. Matteo Bartelli 19th, Clement Rouget 20th, Lorenzo Fellon 21st, Colin Feldhausen 22nd with the Nikos team, Ruben Byman in 23rd, and you can see the runners and riders. Then the riders who failed to finish: Julian Hirao, Adrian Huertas, Peter Pepperleinen, the three who were caught up in that incident, bringing out the red flag towards the end of the race. Jose Antonio Rueda, Carlos Torres also failing to make the checkered flag. Then Kenny Koskinen, David Salvador, Fernando Guia, Ignacio Iglesias, Xavier Artigas, Simo Gorbe, Alejandro Diez, and Nicolas Hernandez. A race of attrition in the European Talent Cup race number 1 is a way of putting it very, very lightly indeed there, Fran.
Yeah, indeed. That was a bit of a dramatic end to that race. So, yeah, and there's a bit of confusion down in Parc Fermé, who's obviously got that win because it counts back a lap to over the line. But pretty impressive stuff there. Gomez did everything he needed to.
Exactly. Well, we're just waiting for a new schedule to come through from Race Direction because, of course, this red flag will have had a knock-on delay for the Moto 2 race. Let's have a look at the championship standings, though, after race number 1. Here is Francisco Gomez, then, and he leads the way now by 4 points over Barry Bautas. So brilliant stuff from him. Julian Hirao, unfortunately failing to finish after that incident, down into third position for him, 6 points adrift of the top. Victor Rodriguez into fourth, Matteo Patacca in fifth position. But it's all to play for inside, I'd say, the top 5 there, with less than a race win between all of those riders. Very exciting stuff at the top end of the European Talent Cup.
Yeah, that really closed it up there. Obviously, I was saying that they had a bit of breathing space at the top there. That's all gone now with that end of race incident. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the second race today.
Certainly will do. Josh Watley with his 9th place gets up to 18th position. Good stuff from the British rider. Dirk Geiger in 19th, sorry, Colin Feldhausen in 20th place. The Dutch rider had a quick chat with him yesterday. Very shy lad, but coming on song and learning his English very well with the Nikos team.
Yeah, I think you always get that with a lot of Northern Europeans. Incredible English. It almost puts us to shame a little bit.
This is very, very true. Well, we wait for the new schedule to come out then for the Moto2 race, whether they'll chop a lap off it or whether we'll have just a slight delay to proceedings. I imagine it will probably be the latter, but we'll wait for official confirmation from the race direction. But what did we learn from that race there, Fran, before the red flag? Because it was very exciting in and amongst the front.
It was. I think obviously it's pretty unfortunate for those guys at the end who just lost out on those points. That's pretty expensive, well, not day, because we've got another race to go, but certainly a pretty expensive incident in terms of the championship standings. Obviously we are still very, very early in the season, but yeah, and then Gomez there just swooping in from 3rd straight up to top the leaderboard now. So yeah, it'd be pretty interesting later, I think. Hopefully they can all race on for race 2 and we'll get another great showdown, because I think we would have had some fireworks, if not in that way, then certainly around the final lap in the final corner.
Yeah, certainly one thing you can rely on for the European Town Cup is it's very unpredictable indeed. You can see the fans, of course, over here at the FIM CEV Repsol in Valencia this weekend. Always good to see so many people here, and of course it's a free event to come to as well.
It is, and you can you can get really good access here. I think it's a great place to come and get a bit more involved. You know, much like World Superbike has great access for fans at a lot of events as well. Here you can really see how everything works and get in the midst of the action. And we can see as well here a little bit less breeze now, which is pretty nice.